Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something that is fundamental to how we navigate life, our mindset. It's easy to talk about goals and aspirations, but what underpins our ability to achieve them is our mindset. I like to think of it as the foundation of everything we build in life. If the foundation is strong, everything we lay on top of it can endure. But if the foundation is weak, even the smallest storm can topple our dreams. Building the strongest mindset is not something that happens overnight, nor is it something that we can afford to overlook. It requires intentionality, discipline, and a willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths about ourselves. It's about building resilience, practicing vulnerability, and embracing the uncertainty that life inevitably brings. It's about cultivating a mindset that doesn't break in the face of adversity, but grows stronger. But let's be clear, forcing yourself to build the strongest mindset is not just about pushing through hardships blindly. It's about creating the kind of mental strength that empowers you to show up, be seen, and live bravely, even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. It's about standing in the middle of the chaos and saying, I'm not going to let this define me. Here's the truth: mindset is everything. It shapes how we view the world, how we view ourselves, and ultimately how we experience life. So today, I want to invite you to challenge yourself. Challenge the thoughts that keep you small. Challenge the fears that hold you back. Challenge the stories you tell yourself that say you're not enough. Because the strongest mindset is not one that avoids fear, pain, or failure. It's one that embraces them as necessary parts of the journey toward greatness. So let's dive deep and start building the mindset that will carry us through the inevitable highs and lows of life. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with weakness, thinking that being vulnerable means exposing yourself to hurt or being overly emotional. But in reality, vulnerability is one of the most powerful tools we have for growth, connection, and transformation. To embrace vulnerability is to step into a space of uncertainty and openness where real courage is born. Vulnerability doesn't mean sharing every detail of your life with everyone you meet. It's about being honest with yourself, allowing yourself to feel deeply, and not shying away from the emotional weight of life's experiences. The strongest mindset understands that vulnerability is not about how much you can endure without breaking. It's about how much you are willing to open up and confront what you fear most, whether that's failure, rejection, or simply the unknown. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give ourselves permission to live fully. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Think about it: every great leader, every trailblazer, every person who has ever made a difference in the world had to step into the unknown. They had to embrace their vulnerability, knowing full well that there was no guarantee of success. Yet they did it anyway. Why? Because they understood that staying closed off, staying in a place of certainty and safety, meant stagnation. It meant they would never grow. What does vulnerability look like in our day-to-day lives? It looks like speaking up when you're afraid to. It looks like asking for help when you need it instead of pretending you have it all together. It looks like acknowledging your mistakes and learning from them rather than hiding them in shame. It looks like being present with others, allowing yourself to be seen even when you feel unworthy. Many of us are taught to put up walls, to hide our insecurities, and to project an image of perfection. But building a strong mindset means tearing down those walls and recognizing that our imperfections, our doubts, and our fears are what make us human. They're also what make us relatable. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you create space for deeper, more meaningful connections with others. You allow yourself to be seen as you are, not as who you think you should be. Vulnerability also teaches us resilience. When you embrace vulnerability, you realize that you can survive the things you once thought would break you. Yes, opening yourself up can lead to hurt, disappointment, and failure. But it can also lead to joy, growth, and unexpected victories. The key is understanding that vulnerability is not about the outcome, it's about the process. It's about showing up, even when you're unsure of what will happen next. And through that process, you become stronger, more resilient, and more open to life's possibilities. One of the most liberating things about embracing vulnerability is that it frees you from the constant pressure of trying to control everything. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you acknowledge that not everything is within your power to manage. You surrender to the fact that life is unpredictable and that the real strength comes not from control, but from your ability to navigate uncertainty with grace. This is the foundation of a strong mindset, the understanding that your worth is not tied to your ability to control or avoid difficult situations, but to your willingness to engage with them fully, even when they scare you. It's also important to remember that vulnerability is a practice. It's not something you embrace once and then you're done. It's something you have to continually commit to, because there will always be new challenges, new fears, and new situations that will test your courage. But each time you lean into vulnerability, you grow stronger, more self-aware, and more capable of handling whatever life throws your way. In the end, vulnerability is about authenticity. It's about being real, being true to yourself, and showing up in the world as you are, without the mask, without the armor. It's about recognizing that you don't need to be perfect to be strong. You don't need to have all the answers or be invulnerable to pain in order to succeed. The strongest mindset is one that embraces the full spectrum of human experience, the joy and the sorrow, the love and the loss, the certainty and the unknown. So the next time you feel tempted to hide your true self, to shrink away from a challenge because it feels too risky or too exposed, remember, this vulnerability is not your enemy, it's your greatest strength. It's the door to deeper connection, greater creativity, and the kind of resilience that will see you through the hardest of times. Embrace it and watch how your mindset transforms into something unshakable, something that can withstand any storm life sends your way. And when you build your mindset on a foundation of vulnerability, you'll find that it's not just strong, it's unbreakable. Practice self-compassion. Self-compassion is one of the most overlooked, yet most essential elements of building a strong mindset. In a world that constantly pushes us to achieve, to be perfect, and to measure up to often unattainable standards, it's easy to be incredibly harsh on ourselves. Many of us have an internal dialogue that's filled with self-criticism, judgment, and even shame, especially when things don't go as planned. But what if we shifted that inner dialogue? What if we treated ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we so easily extend to others? Self-compassion is about learning to turn that kindness inward. It's about recognizing that we are human, that we will make mistakes, and that imperfection is a part of the human experience. When we practice self-compassion, we acknowledge that it's okay to not have it all figured out. It's okay to stumble, and most importantly, it's okay to treat ourselves gently as we navigate life's ups and downs. Let's begin with the basics. What does self-compassion look like? It means speaking to yourself with kindness rather than harshness. Instead of berating yourself for not being perfect, self-compassion invites you to say, I'm doing the best I can right now, and that's enough. Instead of replaying your failures over and over in your mind, self-compassion allows you to view those failures as valuable lessons, as part of the process of growth. It means acknowledging that, just like everyone else, you are a work in progress and you are deserving of the same grace and understanding you'd offer a loved one. One of the most powerful aspects of self-compassion is its ability to promote emotional resilience. When we practice self-compassion, we become more capable of handling life's inevitable challenges. This is because instead of spiraling into a cycle of self-blame and self-criticism, we create space for healing and learning. When something doesn't go our way, the self-compassionate mindset says, this is difficult, but it's not the end. I can get through this. In contrast, the self-critical mindset might say, I failed, and this proves I'm not good enough. Think about how you respond when a close friend is going through a tough time. You likely listen, offer support, and reassure them that they will get through it. You wouldn't criticize or belittle them, right? So why, when we go through our own challenges, do we treat ourselves so harshly? This is where self-compassion comes in. It asks us to be our own source of comfort and encouragement. It's about cultivating a gentle, understanding voice within, one that recognizes the difficulty of what we're experiencing and provides the support we need to move forward. Self-compassion also involves letting go of the unrealistic expectations we often place on ourselves. Many of us strive for perfection in various aspects of our lives, whether it's in our careers, our relationships, or even in how we look and act. But the truth is, perfection is unattainable. No one is perfect, and expecting ourselves to be so only sets us up for disappointment and frustration. When we practice self-compassion, we learn to embrace our imperfections as part of our humanity. We stop striving for impossible standards and start accepting ourselves as we are, flaws and all. Another important aspect of self-compassion is learning to forgive ourselves. We all make mistakes. We all have moments we wish we could take back. But holding on to guilt, shame, or regret only weighs us down and prevents us from moving forward. Self-compassion invites us to acknowledge our mistakes, learn from them, and then let them go. It teaches us that we are not defined by our past missteps, but by how we choose to grow from them. It's about releasing the heavy burden of self-judgment and embracing the freedom that comes with self-forgiveness. One of the reasons self-compassion is so vital to building a strong mindset is that it creates a solid foundation for resilience. When we are kind to ourselves, we build emotional fortitude. We become better equipped to handle setbacks because we trust that no matter what happens, we will treat ourselves with understanding and care. This inner safety net allows us to take risks, try new things, and step outside of our comfort zones, knowing that even if things don't go as planned, we won't turn on ourselves. Practicing self-compassion also helps to reduce stress and anxiety. When we constantly push ourselves to be perfect, or when we beat ourselves up for not meeting our own high expectations, we create a tremendous amount of internal pressure. This pressure can lead to feelings of inadequacy, overwhelm, and even burnout. But when we approach ourselves with kindness, we relieve some of that pressure. We give ourselves permission to take breaks, to recharge, and to prioritize our mental and emotional well-being. In doing so, we create a more sustainable path to success and fulfillment. Moreover, self-compassion fosters a healthier relationship with failure. Failure is a natural part of life, but many of us fear it so intensely that we either avoid taking risks or punish ourselves when things don't work out. Self-compassion reframes failure as a learning opportunity. Instead of saying, "I failed, therefore I am a failure," self-compassion says, "This didn't work out, but it's part of the journey and I can learn from it." This shift in perspective allows us to bounce back more quickly from setbacks and approach future challenges with a growth mindset rather than a fear of failure. It's important to note that self-compassion is not the same as self-pity or making excuses for ourselves. It's not about avoiding responsibility or letting ourselves off the hook. On the contrary, self-compassion holds space for accountability while also recognizing that we are all imperfect beings doing the best we can. It's about balancing self-kindness with a realistic understanding of our limitations and recognizing that growth comes not from beating ourselves down, but from lifting ourselves up. In conclusion, practicing self-compassion is a vital part of building a strong, resilient mindset. It allows us to navigate life's challenges with grace and understanding rather than harsh judgment. It gives us the emotional strength to learn from our mistakes and the freedom to embrace our imperfections. When we learn to treat ourselves with the same kindness we offer others, we unlock a deeper sense of inner peace, self-acceptance, and resilience. So the next time you find yourself in a moment of struggle, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, how can I be kind to myself in this moment? How can I offer myself the compassion I truly deserve? Because when we practice self-compassion, we not only build a stronger mindset, we build a life rooted in authenticity, resilience, and self-love. Reframe failure as a learning opportunity. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Too often we see failure as something to be avoided at all costs, a sign that we are not good enough, not smart enough, or not capable. But what if we could change our perception of failure? What if we could look at failure not as a dead end, but as a crucial part of the learning process? Reframing failure as a learning opportunity is essential to building the strongest mindset because it transforms setbacks into valuable insights and fuels personal growth. One of the biggest mistakes we make is associating failure with our self-worth. When we fail at something, whether it's a project, a relationship, or a personal goal, it's easy to internalize that failure and believe it reflects who we are as individuals. We start to tell ourselves stories, "I'm not cut out for this," or "I'll never succeed." This way of thinking limits us, keeps us in a box of self-doubt, and makes us fear taking risks in the future. But if we reframe failure as an inevitable part of the journey to success, we begin to see it as something external, something that happened, not something that defines us. Failure has immense potential to teach us, but only if we are willing to look for the lessons hidden within it. When you experience failure, instead of rushing to feelings of defeat or embarrassment, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What went wrong, and how can I do better next time? These questions open the door to self-improvement and allow you to shift from a mindset of helplessness to one of empowerment. Failure isn't final, it's feedback. It's a signal that something in your approach didn't work, but it's also an invitation to try again with greater wisdom and insight. Let's consider an example. Think about a time when you failed at something important to you. Maybe it was a job interview, a business venture, or a personal goal you had been working towards. The initial reaction to that failure might have been disappointment, frustration, or even shame. But if you dig deeper into the experience, you might find that the failure wasn't as simple as it seemed. Perhaps there were skills you needed to develop further, or maybe there was a lack of preparation that you can address in the future. By analyzing what went wrong, you begin to extract valuable lessons that can improve your chances of success the next time around. Failure also builds resilience. When you fail and then get back up to try again, you strengthen your ability to persevere in the face of difficulty. Each time you face failure, you become more accustomed to handling adversity. Over time, you develop a mindset that no longer fears failure but welcomes it as an essential part of the growth process. This resilience is critical in life because it ensures that you can keep moving forward even when things don't go as planned. A strong mindset doesn't crumble at the sight of failure, it leans into it. Knowing that each failure brings with it the opportunity to become stronger, smarter, and more prepared. Moreover, reframing failure helps to cultivate a growth mindset, which is the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. When you have a fixed mindset, you believe that your talents and intelligence are static traits, and therefore failure is a sign that you are inherently incapable. However, when you adopt a growth mindset, you understand that failure is simply a step along the path to mastery. Every failure provides new information and experiences that contribute to your development. It shifts your focus from the outcome, whether you succeed or fail, to the process of growth and improvement. It's also important to recognize that failure is often a result of taking risks. If you are consistently pushing yourself to grow, learn, and step outside of your comfort zone, you are going to experience failure from time to time. This is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a sign that you are challenging yourself and expanding your capabilities. People who avoid failure by playing it safe may never experience the sting of falling short, but they also miss out on the joy of true growth and achievement. The strongest mindset understands that failure is not something to be feared, but embraced as a natural part of striving for greatness. Failure teaches us about ourselves in ways that success often cannot. When everything goes smoothly, it's easy to assume we are doing everything right, but it's in moments of failure that we are forced to confront our blind spots. Failure makes us reflect, question our assumptions, and identify areas where we need to improve. It reveals our weaknesses not as a way to diminish us, but as an opportunity to grow stronger. If we approach failure with curiosity rather than judgment, we open ourselves up to learning more about who we are and what we are capable of. Furthermore, failure fosters creativity and innovation. Many of the most significant breakthroughs and discoveries in history were born out of failure. When an idea didn't work as expected, the people behind it didn't give up. They pivoted, adapted, and tried something new. They learned from what didn't work and applied those lessons to create something better. This is the mindset that leads to progress, both personally and collectively. Failure forces us to think outside the box, to experiment with new approaches, and to come up with creative solutions that we may never have considered if everything had gone according to plan. Lastly, reframing failure as a learning opportunity creates a sense of freedom. When you no longer view failure as something to be ashamed of or something to avoid at all costs, you free yourself to take bigger risks, to dream bigger dreams, and to pursue your goals with greater confidence. You understand that even if you fail, you will gain something valuable from the experience. This freedom from the fear of failure is what enables you to push the boundaries of your potential and achieve things you never thought possible. When you approach failure with a mindset of learning and growth, it loses its power to hold you back. Instead, it becomes a stepping stone on the path to success, an essential part of the journey that shapes you into the person you are meant to become. Challenge the stories you tell yourself. We all have stories we tell ourselves. These stories shape how we see the world, how we see others, and most importantly, how we see ourselves. They are the internal narratives that dictate our beliefs, actions, and sense of identity. Often, these stories are rooted in past experiences, societal expectations, or the opinions of others. Over time, they become ingrained, forming the lens through which we interpret our lives. But here's the thing, many of these stories are not necessarily true. They are interpretations, assumptions, and sometimes even distortions of reality. If we want to build the strongest mindset, we must learn to challenge these stories. The stories we tell ourselves can be powerful, but they can also be limiting. For instance, if you've experienced failure or rejection in the past, you might start to tell yourself a story that you're not capable or that success isn't meant for you. You might convince yourself that you're not the type of person who can achieve certain things, whether it's a promotion, a fulfilling relationship, or a personal goal. These limiting stories, though often unconscious, can act as barriers that prevent you from reaching your full potential. The problem is that once you accept these narratives as truth, you begin to live them out. You unknowingly sabotage yourself by reinforcing beliefs that hold you back. One of the first steps in challenging the stories you tell yourself is to become aware of them. Many of us go through life with these narratives running in the background, influencing our decisions without us even realizing it. Start by paying attention to your inner dialogue. What do you say to yourself when things go wrong, when you face a challenge, when you're about to step outside your comfort zone? If you notice thoughts like, "I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this," or "this is just the way things are," it's time to question them. These are not objective truths, they are stories you've adopted over time, often without even realizing it. Once you've identified these limiting narratives, the next step is to examine their origins. Where did these stories come from? Did they stem from a specific experience, a failure, or a criticism you received? Or perhaps they were passed down to you through societal norms, family dynamics, or cultural conditioning. Often, we internalize stories about who we are based on the expectations of others, parents, teachers, peers, or even the media. These external influences can shape our self-concept in profound ways, leading us to adopt beliefs about ourselves that don't reflect our true potential. For example, if you were told growing up that you're not good at math or that you're not athletic, you might carry those beliefs into adulthood, even though they may no longer be accurate. You might avoid opportunities or challenges in those areas, believing the story that you're inherently bad at them. But the truth is, these are just narratives, not immutable facts. By challenging the stories you've internalized, you open yourself up to new possibilities. You give yourself permission to rewrite the script and redefine what you are capable of achieving. Challenging the stories you tell yourself also requires questioning the evidence you use to support them. Often, we cherry-pick moments from our past that seem to confirm our limiting beliefs, while ignoring the evidence that contradicts them. For instance, if you believe you're not good at public speaking, you might focus solely on the one time you stumbled over your words in a presentation, while forgetting the instances where you spoke confidently and received positive feedback. Our minds have a way of magnifying our failures and minimizing our successes, which reinforces the negative stories we tell ourselves. To break this cycle, start collecting evidence that disproves your limiting narratives. Remind yourself of your strengths, your accomplishments, and the times you overcame challenges. Another key aspect of challenging your internal stories is recognizing the difference between facts and interpretations. A fact is something that is objectively true. I didn't get the job I applied for. An interpretation is the meaning you assign to that fact, I didn't get the job because I'm not qualified, or I didn't get the job because I'm a failure. Notice how quickly our minds leap from fact to interpretation, often in a negative direction. But the fact itself doesn't have inherent meaning, it's neutral. The interpretation is where we inject our fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs. By separating facts from interpretations, we can start to see situations more clearly and avoid jumping to conclusions that reinforce negative stories about ourselves. In addition to questioning the stories rooted in past experiences, it's important to be aware of the stories you're creating about your future. Often we tell ourselves stories about what's possible or impossible based on where we are today. You might think, I'll never be able to start my own business, or I'll never be able to run a marathon. These future-oriented narratives can be just as limiting as the stories we tell about our past. The danger of these stories is that they become self-fulfilling prophecies. When you believe something is out of reach, you're less likely to take the actions needed to achieve it. But if you challenge those assumptions and start telling yourself a different story, one where you are capable, resilient, and resourceful, you'll begin to align your actions with that new narrative. It's also important to remember that the stories we tell ourselves are often tied to fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty. These fears can distort our perception of reality and keep us stuck in a loop of self-doubt. When we challenge our stories, we're not just challenging the narrative itself, we're also confronting the fear that underlies it. This can be uncomfortable, but it's a necessary step in building a strong mindset. By facing our fears and questioning the stories they create, we start to see that many of the limitations we've placed on ourselves are not real. They're constructs of the mind, and they can be dismantled. Another way to challenge the stories you tell yourself is to shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is one where you believe your abilities, intelligence, and talents are set in stone. You either have them or you don't. This mindset leads to stories like, I'm not smart enough or I'm not talented enough, but a growth mindset is one that embraces the idea that you can develop and improve through effort, learning, and perseverance. When you adopt a growth mindset, the stories you tell yourself begin to change. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you start saying, I can't do this yet, but I can learn. This shift in narrative opens up a world of possibilities and helps you see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to be avoided. Additionally, it's important to recognize that the stories we tell ourselves are often influenced by comparison. In the age of social media, we're constantly bombarded with images and stories of other people's successes, achievements, and seemingly perfect lives. It's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others and feeling like we don't measure up. But comparison is a thief of joy, and it often leads to distorted stories about our own worth and capabilities. Instead of comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel, focus on your own path, your own progress, and your own growth. Challenge the story that says you're behind or not doing enough. Your journey is unique, and it's unfolding at its own pace. Lastly, challenging the stories you tell yourself is an ongoing process. It's not something you do once and then move on from. These narratives have often been with us for years, and they won't disappear overnight. But with practice, you can start to catch yourself when you're falling into an old story and choose to rewrite it in real time. This requires mindfulness and self-awareness, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you'll find that the stories you tell yourself start to shift from limiting and self-defeating to empowering and liberating. Cultivate gratitude and joy in every season. Gratitude and joy are not just fleeting emotions that we experience when things are going well. They are practices, intentional habits of the heart and mind that we can cultivate in every season of life. When we think of gratitude, we often associate it with the good times, the moments when everything is falling into place, when we receive something we've longed for, or when we're surrounded by the people we love. But true gratitude extends beyond those high points. It's about learning to find something to be thankful for even when life feels difficult, uncertain, or overwhelming. Gratitude allows us to shift our focus from what's lacking in our lives to what we already have, fostering a sense of contentment and peace that transcends circumstances. One of the most powerful aspects of gratitude is that it helps us reframe our experiences. When we approach life through a lens of gratitude, even the most challenging situations can become opportunities for growth and learning. It's not about denying the difficulties or pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Rather, it's about acknowledging the full spectrum of life's experiences, the highs and the lows, and choosing to see the beauty and blessings that coexist with the struggles. In every season, no matter how harsh or barren it may seem, there are seeds of joy and reasons for gratitude waiting to be uncovered. To cultivate gratitude, it's essential to develop a daily practice of reflection. This could be as simple as taking a few minutes at the beginning or end of each day to think about what you are grateful for. Start small, perhaps it's the warmth of your morning coffee, the comfort of a good book, or the support of a friend. Over time, as you consistently engage in this practice, you'll begin to notice more and more things to be grateful for, even in moments that might otherwise feel insignificant or mundane. The act of consciously seeking out gratitude trains your mind to focus on the positive, wiring your brain to look for the good in every situation. Gratitude also shifts our perspective from scarcity to abundance. Often, we get caught up in what we don't have, the promotion we didn't get, the relationship that didn't work out, the goal we haven't yet achieved. This scarcity mindset can lead to feelings of frustration, inadequacy, and resentment. But when we practice gratitude, we remind ourselves of the abundance that already exists in our lives. We begin to see the wealth of experiences, relationships, and opportunities that are already present. This shift in focus from scarcity to abundance helps to combat feelings of envy and comparison, allowing us to fully appreciate the richness of our own journey. One of the most profound ways to cultivate gratitude is by embracing joy, even in the midst of difficulty. Joy is not the same as happiness, which is often dependent on external circumstances. Joy is a deeper, more enduring state of being that comes from within. It is the recognition that despite life's challenges, there is still beauty, love, and goodness to be experienced. Joy can be found in the smallest of moments: a shared laugh, a beautiful sunset, a kind word. It is not reserved for the big, triumphant occasions, but is woven into the fabric of everyday life, waiting to be noticed and cherished. In difficult seasons, it can feel counterintuitive to seek out joy. When we are going through pain, loss, or uncertainty, our natural inclination is to focus on what's wrong, to dwell on our struggles, and to wait for things to get better before we allow ourselves to feel joy. But the practice of cultivating joy in every season teaches us that we don't have to wait for circumstances to change before we can experience it. Joy is available to us here and now, even in the midst of hardship. It's about finding the glimmers of light in the darkness and holding on to them, no matter how small they may seem. One way to cultivate joy is by practicing mindfulness and being fully present in the moment. So often we rush through life distracted by our to-do lists, our worries, and our ambitions that we miss the simple joys that are right in front of us. By slowing down and paying attention to the present moment, we open ourselves up to the possibility of joy. It might be the feeling of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds chirping, or the taste of your favorite meal. These moments may be brief, but they can provide a deep sense of connection and contentment when we take the time to savor them. Another way to cultivate joy is by nurturing connections with others. Joy is often amplified when it is shared. Whether it's spending time with loved ones, engaging in acts of kindness, or simply expressing appreciation to someone who has made a positive impact on your life, these moments of connection can bring immense joy. Even in times of struggle, relationships can serve as a source of strength and support, reminding us that we are not alone. By fostering a spirit of gratitude and joy within our relationships, we create a ripple effect that not only enhances our own well-being, but also uplifts those around us. It's also important to recognize that cultivating gratitude and joy in every season doesn't mean ignoring or suppressing negative emotions. Life is full of a wide range of emotions: joy, sorrow, fear, love, anger, hope, and they all have a place in our experience. What gratitude and joy do is help us to hold space for all of these emotions without letting the negative ones dominate our perspective. We can acknowledge the pain and still choose to focus on what is good. We can grieve and still find reasons to be thankful. This balance allows us to live more fully and authentically, embracing the complexity of life with grace and resilience. In the end, gratitude and joy are not just feelings to be experienced, they are practices to be cultivated deliberately and consistently. By making a habit of gratitude, we train our minds to see the good, even when life feels hard. By seeking joy in every season, we remind ourselves that there is always something worth celebrating, even in the midst of struggle. These practices don't just change our outlook, they change our lives. They build a foundation of resilience, contentment, and inner peace that sustains us through the ups and downs of life. Consistency is the key that unlocks long-term growth and lasting change. It's the steady rhythm that propels you forward even when the path is uncertain or filled with obstacles. The concept of consistency might seem simple, just show up, put in the work, and keep going, but in practice, it can be one of the most challenging aspects of building a strong mindset. The difficulty lies in maintaining momentum when the initial excitement fades, when progress seems slow, or when life throws curveballs your way. But it is in those very moments when it's hard to stay the course that consistency becomes even more crucial. When you commit to consistency, you're not just committing to action, you're committing to a mindset. It's about showing up for yourself every day, regardless of how you feel or what external circumstances may be. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect or perform at 100% all the time. It means having the discipline to continue, even if it's just taking small steps on days when you feel like giving up. The act of staying consistent, even in the face of adversity, builds resilience and strengthens your capacity to endure. One of the greatest challenges to consistency is the temptation to quit when progress isn't immediate or visible. We live in a culture that values instant results and quick fixes, and it can be discouraging when the effort we're putting in doesn't seem to yield immediate rewards. But real, meaningful change takes time, and consistency is what bridges the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. Think of it as planting seeds. You may not see growth right away, but with time, patience, and consistent care, those seeds will eventually sprout into something substantial. The fruits of your labor may not appear overnight, but they will come if you remain steadfast. To stay consistent, it's important to have a clear sense of your why, your purpose, your reason for pursuing your goals in the first place. When the going gets tough, when motivation wanes, or when setbacks occur, returning to your why can help reignite your commitment. Your why serves as a compass, guiding you through the difficult times and reminding you that the journey is about more than just the destination. It's about who you are becoming in the process and the values you are embodying through your consistent actions. Another key to consistency is breaking your goals into smaller, manageable tasks. It's easy to become overwhelmed when looking at the big picture, especially when the finish line feels far away. But by breaking your larger goals down into smaller, more achievable steps, you can maintain a sense of progress and accomplishment along the way. Each small victory fuels your momentum, making it easier to keep going, even when things get tough. Consistency isn't about doing everything at once, it's about doing what you can, day in and day out, and trusting that those small, consistent efforts will compound over time. There will inevitably be days when it feels harder to stay consistent. Perhaps you're tired, stressed, or facing external challenges that make it difficult to focus on your goals. On these days, it's essential to show yourself grace and compassion, while still holding yourself accountable. You don't have to push yourself to the brink of exhaustion or force perfection. Consistency is more about persistence than perfection. On the tough days, doing something however small is better than doing nothing. These moments are opportunities to practice perseverance, to strengthen your mindset, and to prove to yourself that you can keep going, even when the circumstances are less than ideal. Another important aspect of staying consistent is setting up routines and systems that support your goals. When you establish a routine, you remove some of the mental effort required to make decisions about what to do each day. It becomes less about motivation or willpower and more about following the plan you've already set in place. Routines create structure, and structure helps you stay on track, even when distractions or obstacles arise. Whether it's a morning ritual, a workout routine, or a dedicated time for reflection, having a consistent practice creates a foundation that supports your growth. Staying consistent also requires embracing the long-term view. When we focus too much on short-term results, we can become discouraged by temporary setbacks or plateaus. But true consistency is about the bigger picture. It's about playing the long game and recognizing that progress often happens in subtle, incremental ways. Sometimes the greatest growth is happening below the surface, where you can't immediately see it. Trusting in the process and staying committed to your efforts, even when the results aren't immediately visible, is what separates those who succeed from those who give up prematurely. In closing, building the strongest mindset is not about adopting a quick fix strategy or achieving instant results. It's about embracing a lifelong journey of intentional growth. It requires you to embrace vulnerability, to see your imperfections as openings for connection and strength. It calls you to practice self-compassion, to treat yourself with the kindness and grace you would offer a friend, especially in moments of hardship. It challenges you to reframe failure, to shift your perspective and view setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth rather than signs of defeat. You must also question and challenge the stories you tell yourself, understanding that your narrative shapes your reality, and by rewriting it, you unlock your full potential. Gratitude and joy become essential companions along this journey, grounding you in a mindset of abundance even when life presents its toughest challenges. And finally, staying consistent, even when it's hard, is the glue that holds it all together. It's in those moments of perseverance, when the road feels long and progress seems distant, that you truly forge the mindset of strength and resilience that will carry you through any season of life. Remember, this journey is about more than achieving success. It's about becoming the person who is capable of sustaining it.